Here is the latest weather brief for the 27th of March, Easter Sunday. We're looking at a very interesting couple of weeks ahead. Businesses who are normally preparing for spring should hold off, especially over the eastern half of the United States, or at least the eastern third, and also especially in the Great Lakes region into New England and portions of the East Coast, all the way south into portions of East Texas, Louisiana, even into Alabama and northern Georgia. Temperatures are going to be below to much below normal as we move into the first week of April. Let's look at what's happening on the water vapor loop. This is enhanced by infrared imagery. We can see several of the features that will eventually come into play to make at least the first storm that we're expecting to usher in this colder air relevant. First of all, if you look to the far west over the Dakotas and into Montana, you can see the drop of cold air from Canada that is pouring south. You can see that by the sort of white shaded areas that continue to drop. Also, if you look at the darker shaded areas beneath that, that's cold air that's moving into North Texas. The next feature that we're looking at is the eastern edge of this trough, which is drawing in the colder air. There is some precipitation associated with that from Kansas north into portions of Wisconsin. When that trough meets up with this moisture that's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, it's beginning to tap the Gulf of Mexico at least. You can see that major swath of moisture. It was subtropical and still is subtropical, moving over portions of Mexico and then over the southeastern United States. When this trough drops down, what will happen is the very moist, warm air will begin to move north out of the Gulf of Mexico, and the orientation of this system will be more north-south versus southwest-northeast. And so the moisture that will be out ahead of this trough will play into what will likely be a significant severe weather event over portions of the Ohio Valley, at least in terms of strong winds and hail and the possibility of an isolated tornado or two. That severe weather threat also exists over the south, although we're not as concerned about that today, as it appears as though cloud cover and deep moisture at all layers will probably lessen the probability of severe weather over the deep south. But we are looking at an area over portions of eastern Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, right up to the Michigan border, which looks like we could see a significant area of severe thunderstorms develop later today. The Climate Prediction Center has issued their 8 to 14 day probabilistic outlook for hazards over the next 8 to 14 days, or starting 8 days from now and then ending 14 days out. And this covers a period from the 2nd of April right on through the 20th of April. So if you look at this map, you can see that there is a significant area of very cold air that's expected over portions of the northern plains into the northern Great Lakes. Another significant area of cold air, not quite as cold, but the probability remains relatively high over an area that covers the Great Plains and moves into the Ohio Valley, and then a relatively large area, a slight risk area, which covers areas to the further to the west and south, and even onto the east toward western New York State, Pennsylvania, through the Tennessee Valley, and even into the portions of the northern portions of the Southern Plains, and it nips the eastern Rockies as well. That said, all of this air is going to have to eventually drop further to the south and east as we move through the next several weeks, especially through April. These temperatures will moderate quickly because of the sun and its angle on the earth. So this cold air, while it will drop down and be quite cold initially, will probably moderate as it remains over the United States. And so its impact will decrease as we move toward the 20th of April. Let's take a look at the latest North American model, focusing our attention on the next 84 hours or so. As you can see, the 540 line dips down into the plains as well as the Rockies. Let's see what happens in terms of precipitation. It looks like we will see frontogenesis over portions of Wisconsin back into Oklahoma, and we ought to see a low begin to form on this front. A narrow line of thunderstorms likely to develop as we move into the late afternoon, early evening hours from Wisconsin on down into northeast Missouri, and that line will likely become severe over Illinois into southern Michigan, and then further east on into Indiana as we move into the late night hours. We may see the nocturnal thunderstorm activity because of the dynamics aloft with very cold air just behind this system. And so thunderstorms quite likely to continue into the night. We're also going to have to watch the possibility of snowfall. As you see by around Monday morning at say 2 a.m., a low forms over the Detroit area. The 540 line, while sitting over Lake Michigan, rapidly moves to the east by around 3 a.m., and it is already east of Lansing. And so there may be a swath of snowfall that extends from northeastern Michigan south through Lansing and on south into the south central part of Michigan. Look what happens at 8 o'clock in the morning on Monday. The 540 line is right over the Detroit area, certainly to the east of Lansing. Heavy rain pulled back over the Detroit area at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then as we move a little bit further out, a few hours out till around 11, we see the 540 line has slipped to the east of Detroit with heavy precipitation over the Detroit area. I focus on this area because it is very dynamic and is certainly indicative of this very cold air that is likely to move in. As we move into the noon hour on Monday, we see continued precipitation over eastern Michigan, although it is lightning, and colder air has pretty much overtaken most of Wisconsin and Michigan as the 540 line drops to the south and east of both states. The storm quickly ushers off to the northeast. There's likely to be some precipitation over the far western portions of New York State and on into the western portions of New England as this cold air uh, ushers in on the backside of this low, and this low really bombs out over the ocean once it hits just to the east of, moves just to the east of Maine. The strong northwest and northerly winds rather will bring in this much colder air and snow over a good portion of New York State. In fact, southeastern New York and Boston will probably have to look at the chance at least of some snow showers as we move into the overnight hours on Monday night into Tuesday morning. This low exits, and we watch to the west as a system in the Rockies gets going. It is likely to be a mix of rain and snow, snow over the higher elevations, but as we move it further to the east, it looks like it could become a threat to portions of the northern plains, and that cold air is also just behind this system. And as you can see, the Gulf of Mexico is open as the isobars are pretty much almost due south to north, a slight northeast tilt, but you can see the moisture already pulling up. That's going to be our next storm, which will hit as we move into the day on Friday.